Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Steve Bader, Executive Assistant and our Legislative Liaison out of the Mayor's Office. Uh, in the interest of time, I know actually I sent a longer list than I had last time. So last time I think we had 25 bills that were really prioritized, and that has gone to over 40 bills. So I won't go through all of them. I'll just kind of pick some of the bills uh, and then, move through them as quickly as possible in interest of time. We're at the halfway point at the legislature. The first crossover of bills are going to be Thursday, I believe. And so after that happens and hearings are scheduled, then things are going to be moving pretty fast. But at least we reached the halfway point. County is collectively between the departments are probably tracking between 200 and 250 bills. We have some departments are really active because there's a lot of bills that they're following closely. Example being DEM, which is right now tracking 22 bills, but at one time, it was probably about 50 or 60 bills. The list, and I think you guys got the list. I'll try to go through this in front of you. I'll just go page by page, but kind of skip through some and leave it open for questions. At the top of the list on the first page, SB 3363 is the Gila Wastewater Treatment Plant, the appropriation bill for general obligation bonds. That bill did not get heard in WAM, but we're treating it as a CIP request. County did get a letter directly to Ways and Means about including it in their budget package, and we've had preliminary discussions on the House side to make sure we can get it in their package. So the request was for $50 million of state funds, which we'll use to leverage out federal dollars and help supplement our own bond request, which you guys are going to be seeing in our budget process. So that is, even though it's dead on paper, it's actually alive as far as our request. There is a couple bills under there. I'm not going to go through them extensively, but they're bills have been tracked with DEM, CESPU compliance, the pilot project, extended produce responsibility is something we support. That's moved through. And then the next three bills are abandoned vehicle, junkyard type bills. They're a package 1412, HB 1413, HB 1414. They were introduced by Representative Ilagan. These have moved quickly. It's got a lot of support. There's support on the Senate side, so we expect that to be moving right through. I think these are also bills that are supported statewide. SB 2922 SD2 is a bill that came up on our radar over the last few weeks. Actually, from the beginning, but we've been paying really close attention to it over the last 2 weeks, making sure that it gets the kind of support it needs on the House side, and that's to allow up to one house per quarter acre in rural districts if it fits our general plans. There's a lot of support for this bill. SB 3324, housing subdivisions, road repair and maintenance assessments. That bill had changed. It got amended as it was going through its process on the Senate side. And it's establishing a working group to deal with issues that we know is there in our subdivisions, especially those where it gets contentious within those homeowner associations or those groups that don't have any formal structures. So that's an important bill. We have not taken a position on it. It's going to change likely as it moves over on the House side. So we're monitoring that bill closely. It has implications for us. Following page, HB 1788, HD2, Waikea Peninsula Redevelopment Revolving Fund. That bill also changed as it was working through its process on the House. We are supportive of making sure that we have the kind of development that's responsive to what the community wants, and we are closely watching that bill. it does establish, it puts some things in place I think that's important. One, although it doesn't deal with this concept of creating a special authority for it, for that area. It does create a way for us to communicate directly with DLNR from a position that's a stronger position that we've had before. HB 1840, HD2. This bill is something that the mayors have been discussing. So it's HCOM have put some eyes on this bill. District boundary amendments, 15 to 15 acres, opening up more options for affordable housing. So this is something that has the attention of the other county mayors. So we're supportive in general. The reason why there's a comment on review is that it's another one of those bills that is probably going to change as it gets through session, and we want to make sure we have a clear understanding of what the impacts are going to be, but we're supportive of the intent. HB 1403, PMAR, the Puna Alternative Route. We are, of course, supportive. We have support with review because there's a lot of, I think, issues related to that as it with the route, what the routing is going to be, what kind of commitments would that put the county in. We have a meeting set up, Mayor has a meeting set up with Chair Luke on the House side and with Rep. Ilagan to kind of further discuss this bill. We know it's important. We've had a lot of feedback from Upper Puna area about the needs for access on Upper Puna also. So even though that's a separate issue from this one, because this one is real specific to finding a Mackay route below 130, we've been paying attention to what the community has been saying, and we'd like to use this as a springboard to discuss that with our delegation and with Chair Luke. Let me skip down here a little bit. Down towards the bottom of the page, SB 3133, public lands disposition by negotiation. Now, the reason why we're monitoring this bill closely is that it does make an amendment to allow for direct negotiation by DLNR on commercial, industrial, and hotel resort purposes, making them eligible. And so if the department land division is specifically engaged and has the ability to do direct negotiation, which the DLNR is supportive of, it could improve competition, and it could make the, I guess, the leases more beneficial as far as income. On the other hand, it could lock in leases for longer periods of time without the kind of competition we need. So there's a lot of testimony for and against this bill. So where we're sitting on it is we're keeping an eye on it. It's another one of the bills that the mayors are looking at. This comes out of HCOM, taking a close look at that. We haven't taken a position. We know it's another bill that's going to go through a process and be changed. Now, these next set of bills, starting with SB 2068 SD2, pasture leases, land transfers, that and the bills under it, I'm going to kind of take it as a group. And the three under there is HB 1657, 1658, and 1659. Reason being that these all deal with transfer of lands between DLNR and Department of Ag. On the Senate side, SB 2068, that bill is a little bit more complex, and it sort of, in a way, sort of covers all of the areas that these package of bills on the House side do. They're not exactly the same, but they're fairly close. And if you look at the three bills under the House, it's broken down into reforestation efforts. 1658 talks about easements, and 1659 talks about how they extend existing pasture leases for up to 65 years. So both bills deal with that transfer. I mean, both SB 2068 and those three bills deal with that, but one has it in one comprehensive bill. The other is approaching it as a package. Under that HB 1705 HD1, that is the bill that Rep. Todd put together for our small farmers and ornamental growers, allowing them to extend their leases. And it was specific for leases for 25 acres or less. And it says located in a county with population of less than 500,000. So it really just applies to the Big Island and, the neighbor islands primarily.
Mr. Bader, we have to begin planning at 10:30. So what I'm
Okay.
going to suggest is maybe, as far as this overview portion, maybe 5 more minutes.
Sure.
And then I want to get to questions from the
Okay.
council members. Thank
Let
you.
me kind of look for some big ones. We can talk through it a little bit, so I can let you guys know what we're looking at. Corn Hospital bill, it's no problem. Lots of support for that. Which is 1638. We'll move down the back end of this. We got the lifeguard liabilities has lots of support. That's a 8-SAC bill. We got game management bills, 1872, House Bill 1872, and Senate Bill 3299. They're pretty identical. They're not companion bills, but they're worded fairly closely, and so that's moving along. Let me move back down here. Okay, SB 3359, SD2, that is Native Hawaiian Rehab Fund. We're, of course, supportive of that bill. We put a support review on it because we know that bill also is going to be changing as it gets through. The main thing for Hawaii County is that it brings $112 million of development. And so with most of it going into Laiopua, 400 lots, water system in Ka'u, $40 million, $70 million for Laiopua, 40 for Ka'u, and then $2 million for Honolulu ag lots. There was also some supplemental bills. A supplemental report that you may have gotten. I hope you got it because we caught it late that it wasn't in the main. And I'll just say this, that we have a mix of climate bills on there, HB 1800, HB 2493. We have mental health bills that we're tracking to allow for greater access to mental health by especially SB 2829, which has an associate level that they're proposing for people while they're trying to get full licensure, which is very important for access. There's a cesspool conversion and some broadband bills that we're following. What I don't have here, because we kind of wait for the House and the Senate to kind of figure this out, is the minimum wage bill, which will have an impact on us countywide. Both bills passed. They're going to opposite chamber. There's going to be a lot of negotiation as that goes through. So I'll end there and take questions.
Thank you, Steve. I just want to underscore the importance of connecting with members of the council on a lot of these measures. I have a little bit of concern where you are noting that the admin is supporting specific bills. For instance, geothermal royalties and putting a cap on what comes to the county. PGV operates in Puna on Hawaii Islands, and we have ordinances that allow for funding to go through a relocation fund as well as a community benefits fund. And I have a bit of heartburn about caps being put on this. And so please reach out. I mean, even with the PMAR discussion, no one from the administration has reached out to my office. And we're talking about putting in a road in a subdivision where people live. I don't know if they want a highway in their front yard, right? And so I understand the squeaky wheel gets the grease, but I just really encourage the admin to do their homework and engage all parties in the discussion. I do think a lot of these bills warrant a conversation, but let's not take hard stances without really understanding the full picture and the implications. And so I'll leave it there. I think coming forward, because I think we'd like to see you again in April when things really start to shake out and we get a little bit
Sure.
closer to conference. Rather than just this list of bills, maybe organizing by topic. There are priorities related to housing, infrastructure, sustainability, agriculture, and then organizing the bills in that fashion. That way, there's some methodology to how all of this is presented to us, and we have a better sense of everything that you're tracking related to those issues.
Sure, we will be able to do that. And then the thing with PMAR in particular, we're supportive of getting that dialogue started. And we're very open, and we'll engage. I'll make sure admin engages you, and we've been taking a lot of calls from the community primarily on this issue. So we will do that, and it's important. But we also, I think, Mayor feels that we should start that dialogue. And I think basically the bill is to get that moving, not committing to any particular route. And let's see if we can discuss this. So.
Right, it's
So noted.
exploring. Thank you. And please include Councilmember Suli Loy in those discussions because District 3 now includes parts of Hawaiian
That's
Paradise
correct.
Park.
That's
And
correct.
she also is a strong advocate for the Hawaiian homestead community.
Sure.
And I appreciate everybody that stepped forward to advocate for, amendment to the PMAR bill to exclude all DHHL lands. I thought that was
Yep.
excellent and very wise. The other thing, subdivisions, the private subdivisions, we have to have a conversation on this.
Mm-hmm.
I have concerns about state legislators creating policy in a vacuum. No one has reached out to our office to talk story about this. I don't think anybody's reached out to Matt or Miley. I could be wrong, but I just feel that if the county is going to be saddled with unfunded mandates to oversee these subdivisions, we have to be part of the discussion that allows us to ensure that we can adequately enforce this, right?
Yes,
I mean,
we agree.
no disrespect, but I believe that, Senator Joy San Buenaventura had introduced legislation to change which statute governs private subdivisions, and now it's the condo law. That is very confusing for our community. And so again, we have to make sure county and state are really in sync, talking story with one another, because the implications, they're felt by us, our constituents, the residents.
And that in visiting with our delegation, that is the message that the mayor wanted me to make sure that our delegation understands, is that we need to be discussing this. And we get a lot of feedback at the Capitol about why we're not supporting or opposing certain things. And what we tell them is that we'd like to have a conversation with you before you start crafting the bills. And so we're open to it. We're open to working with them to amend bills that we're having problems with. But that is the same message that we've been putting forth.
That's great. And I think we
Yeah.
just have to start early. Talking about what should be in legislation shouldn't happen during session. It's got to happen before session even convenes. So looking at September, October to really talk story about intention and language in bills. Anyway, as always, we appreciate you and we are all here to be a resource. Reach out anytime. Thank you,
Looking
Steve.
forward to coming back and updating too.
Sounds great.
So.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Kirkowitz. Councilmember Richards. First on the draw.
You like to go first? No, go ahead. Okay. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. And I'm going to echo some of the concerns that was raised by Ms. Kirkowitz. A couple of things I did want to touch on. You made reference to Senate Bill 3133, Senate Draft 1. On that one, you referenced the competitive bid provision. And without digging too deep into it, I think it's really important regardless. I talk a lot about agriculture, but it's not all about agriculture. It's about some of our other ongoing businesses here, and having the ability to extend the lease. This is where we run into the problem. There's this concept that we need to always go to open bid. But when you have an ongoing business that is stable and really good for the community, we need to support the fact that we should be able to extend that lease without a whole lot of hakaka. So I'm just echoing my concern for this because I see this time and time again. It's happened here in Hilo most recently, and we see it in the agriculture community all the time. So I'm echoing the concern on that, that we need to be able, even though it's available, a lot of time people circumvent that. From this administration, I would ask that we encourage continuing leases on ongoing, well-established businesses that are good for the community. Jumping over to the Senate Bill 2068, I submitted testimony in full support of this, and this goes back to Act 90, which is 19 years old now. And for the council, this has to do with converting the leases from DLNR to Department of Ag for agriculture leases ongoing. And this has been contentious, obviously, if it's ongoing for 20 years. I fully support that transfer going over. Now, I'm very happy with a hybrid of supporting input from DLNR on some of these lands. But the mission of DLNR and the mission of Department of Agriculture are very, very different. And if we are truly interested in promoting Big Island state as a whole, but agriculture going forward, we have to actually come up to the plate and support it rather than relegating it to the background. So again, and I agree. I mean, there's so many nuances in all these bills, and they change all the time, and I got that. But that being said, supporting agriculture for the long term so we can get the long-term leases. And most people think that a 5-year lease is a long lease. For agriculture, it's nothing. We should be talking 20 years. We should be talking 30 years. And this is where we run into that. And back my comments about Senate Bill 3133 concerning extending those leases. If we have a good land stewardship, which is what DLNR is very concerned about, and it's been proven for generations by a land lessee, reauthorize them. Enough said on that. Chair, I yield.
Yeah, well, I think we're seeing the same thing, and the reason why those bills in particular come up on our priority list is we know it has major impact for us, and we've heard from our ag community, and we want to make sure that what's put in place, works for everybody. The bill dealing with our small farms, I think, is another example where family farms want to continue on, and we want ag to support those farms so they can stay multi-generational.
Exactly. Chair, just quick comment.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we're talking about. If we make it so onerous and difficult for a small family farm to continue, then we wonder why we lost them. We need to support them and set good policy, because agriculture is not the problem. It's public policy is the problem. That's what takes agriculture out. I yield.
Thank you, Councilmember Richards. Councilmember Kirkowitz, or Connie Lee Kleinfelter, sorry.
Oh, you beat me.
Thank you, Chair.
Gotta wake up over there, Sue.
Okay, Steve, thank you for the update. Sorry, I had to go to the boys' room. I had two questions for you.
Sure.
So the bill by Iligan to do the PMAR route.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I talked to him briefly, and he was like, "Oh no, it's not specific to a Mackay route." But looking at this bill, it is, yeah.
It is, yeah.
Okay, so I have an issue with that because
Yeah.
I'd like to see Upper Puna connectivity as well. I do support the bill, but my general approach to him was, look, we got to look at Puna as a whole, not just the bottom portion of 130. So I'm glad you guys are discussing Upper Puna and connectivity. Thank you. And I met briefly with the mayor and discussed that point too. So I'm glad that's kind of being kicked around at least. My second question, I reached out to our state reps this week, and I kind of just sent them all a note. Basically, the California just released businesses who got RRF grants, PPP grants, all that kind of grants from having to pay tax on it. And the state of Hawaii has chosen to tax all small businesses whatever grant income they received as a income source. So the money that was used to help businesses get past being forced to close their doors during COVID are now being taxed on the back end as part of their income. And I don't agree with it. California said we're going to exempt businesses from paying that tax. A lot of other states have done the same thing. We may be late in the game. I texted everyone that I know, including Josh Green. I said, hey, what is going on with this? Why are you guys taxing businesses as an income source for grant funding that was used to bail them out? So anything that the office of the mayor can do to push the governor's office, I think he's probably the only one who can help right now because of where we are in the legislative session. Anything you can do to help the small business community, work with the chambers of commerce, I think it would be very important to take that on. And then DLNR leases, in the past, I've looked over the leases, the DLNR leasing program. I have experience in leases and what it costs to pay for a lease, privately. I've never done a DLNR lease or a state lease. I would say that the state leasing program needs to look a little bit more closely at the value of the land that they're leasing. I think they could do much more in bringing in more income. And I would say that in regards to the DHHL and the Hawaiian Homes programs are based on a percentage of the DLNR lease income. And so the two kind of correlate together in that manner. So I don't know. I'm kind of making a statement, and I'm letting you giving you some, my opinion. But I think they need to really up some of their pricing that they do for those leases, albeit 30-year leases, but still they could be crafted a little bit better.
Yeah, I think some of the bills that are being proposed are trying to get at that. And so what we're doing, and I think the mayors are doing, is really kind of tracking that. And, how the bill ends up at the end of session with the feedback. I mean, it's still, these bills are all amendable. And as Councilman Richards says, it's real fast. I mean, you blink and the thing changes, so but the good thing is that there is access points. And if we work closely with our delegation over there, I think we can be able to get stuff in. But yeah, I agree with you. We need to get better value and a more streamlined way of doing things.
Yep. And I really appreciate, I talked to one senator and they told me, look, we cannot just gut and replace bills anymore. And I was like, there was a reminder that legislation passed, and I actually like that they cannot just gut and replace an entire bill with something completely different. But yeah, thank you, Steve. Appreciate the update.
Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Cornelia Kleinfelder. Anyone else? Come on, you want to. Go ahead. Councilmember Leland.
Thank you, Chair. I just had to sit back and listen. I think I just kind of stand in the same space with the rest of my colleagues, that we're tracking a lot of this legislation and thinking two things. One, how does it impact our constituency? But two, how applicable is it? Because here at the county level, we're going to have to execute, right? And as Councilmember Kirkowitz talked about unfunded mandates, some of the subdivision requirements, it's all going to fall on us. And I really would just continue to encourage the administration to engage us. I've had my own discussions with a lot of the authors of these bills, so they understand the position that my constituents are elevating, which is why we see some of those edits coming out and emerging. It would be nice that the administration and other council members kind of stood in sync with a lot of these bills that are moving forward. That's my only comment. And how things impact one another, especially with all of our leases, this idea of highest and best use. I just personally think that DLNR is trying to do two things: be a landlord, right, but preserve, aquariums and terrariums, right? So they're having what I feel is an identity crisis, which then impacts the Department of Hawaiian Homelands, which has a very different mission and charge. And just to hone in that was mentioned today is I watched that particular subdivision bill in the finance committee, and to hear Oahu members have no clue of the infrastructure needs we have on this island, and just in one particular area of Puna, it really was frightening. It was frightening that they just cannot understand the ruralness of our communities. And then they tack in amendments that is completely it creates more challenges for us. And I just want to help elevate that a little bit and maybe educate a little bit, because we need help. And we had a discussion earlier this morning with Senator Schott's office about opportunities for funding, and we just need to put ourselves in the best position. So those are my comments.
Sure.
But yeah, if you could.
Yeah, I agree and support those comments. And I know that after the last time I was before you, this committee, the mayor sent out an email to everybody saying that there's a bill, that you think has impacted your districts. Please let us know. So that he wanted, after coming out of that, and we had a discussion, said it would be really good if they know that we're open. So he sent that email out, I think the very next day, just to let you know. And then sometimes things happen, I think, more organically, but it all comes together. Like when I saw Councilwoman Leloy over at the farm, the Tonoi's farm, in support of the bill to extend leases, for very small ornamental growers and farmers. And Rep. Todd was there, and Rep. Onishi was there, and Sylvia Luke was there, and you got there, and I got there, and there was a nice, convergence of people to really support that effort. And I was glad to see that Chair Luke was there, because we're going to need that push to get that bill, it moved over, but at the same time, we need her influence to make sure on the Senate side that it gets the kind of traction it needs. So we can come together like that, and I think that's the best way we can do it.
Yeah, and I'm, just reflecting on that particular meeting, what was also elevated is those farmers, they're successful. And if that is the model of success, the ability to open up more state lands rather than just keep fighting over these parcels that are on the books, that's the innovative thought that's emerging out of these small group discussions.
Yes, that's true.
And, there was a lot of value, right, Steve, in that conversation, that they don't need much. They just want, as Mr. Richards says, this idea of a long-term lease so they can create a business plan, because we know things just don't magically grow. It takes time. But that's what I found incredibly valuable with that conversation, is support them, but support the next generation of farmers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that particular bill, there was an early discussion, I think in October, that Rep. Todd and I got invited to with them, which started the ball rolling on that bill. So we had discussions way ahead of time, and the bill was able to get through the House. So now we just got to make sure we can support it on the Senate side.
Thank you. Yes, and that's that partnership. Thank you. Chair, I yield.
Thank you, Councilmember Leloy. Councilmember Richards.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up comment. Springboarding off what Ms. Leloy just said, it's not the lease, it's the economy that little businesses generate. Employment, tax basis, a future, next generation, all that. That's what we need to focus on. That's where I believe government comes in. We got to stand that up. So then that generates the economy that then supports the tax basis so we can afford to do wastewater, roads, take care of Heather's bridges, all of that. So definitely in that direction, but we need to support that to support the economy. I yield.
Thank you, Councilmember Richards. Always got to bring up the bridges. Anyone else? All right, thank you again, Mr. Bader, for taking the time to be here with us today. I'm going to just throw on my HSAC hat real quickly. I know you've been privy to the emails back and forth with the Chief of Police and Prosecutor Walton about 1448. And just for my colleagues, this is an HSAC bill. It has to do with specific surcharge that would be imposed by county ordinance within specific areas added to parking violations. And so it's a tool. It's a revenue generator, yes, but it's also a tool that we can use to address areas where there's particularly hazardous parking situations where people are violating the no parking signs, and a $35 fine is really not enough. Now, in the conversations that you've been privy to via email, you know, the police chief has some concerns, so does the prosecutor. It has passed, though, through the House and will be heard in the Senate. And I hope to work with the two of them to work on that language so that it's in a position that they're comfortable, but again, want to request the administration's support. Again, it's an important tool, I think, that we as a council need in our toolbox to deal with some of these situations. The other one is the chop shop bill, which I believe was on your list in the past. And so
Yeah.
I didn't see it there, but it has passed the Senate. That's 2048, Senate Bill 2048.
Yeah, I'll look for it.
Okay,
Yeah. It
Yeah.
might have just slipped off the list. We're
Okay.
revising this thing constantly, you know, so,
yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
let me look at that.
I think we can all agree that that's an important piece of legislation. And then I'll just, taking my HSOC hat off here and back my council member hat. I just want to, I think Sue's story about, the two of you meeting up and being able to have a conversation just kind of highlights, I think, something we've all touched on, is that we have expertise, connections that are valuable contributions to this process. And so just as always, can encourage the administration to look at us as partners in this process and people that are there to provide information and we can also advocate if there are things that are pertinent to our district. So we'll do our best to reach out and I think we would all appreciate that in coming from the administration in return.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that that's where the value is in being able to move, any piece of legislation if we have all of us talking and working together, getting our best thoughts together. I know you and I had a lot of contact prior to session too, and those are helpful. Even if those bills didn't make it, the discussion on those bills resulted in this GO bond request that's going to, we're working through CIP now, so that's all based on those discussions. So I appreciate it. I know that Mayor does too.
Yeah, well, as Councilmember Leloy mentions, a lot of times the great ideas come out of those conversations. That's where the innovation happens. So appreciate that. I'm going to pass it to Councilmember Kirkowitz here. Do you want to postpone this again, or do you want to put forth a new communication in April?
Motion to postpone this communication to our April 5th meeting.
Thank you, Councilmember Kirkowitz. So we have motion by Councilmember Kirkowitz to postpone to April 5th, a second by, well, I'm going to give this to Councilmember Leloy since she